everybody! Let's see, let's make sure I'm all plugged in and everything. Hi, it is I, Dimple Wizard, and I have just returned from watching the newest and latest addition into the Five Nights at Freddy's universe, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, and it was really good. I have to be honest, I've just seen it. I got to see it in the middle of the day, you know. So it was really, in terms of like the experience itself, it was really great. I got to kind of just enjoy the theater. It was pretty empty and quiet. It was nice because everybody was, kind of signing up for like the later, showings. And I think if you're watching this movie in theaters, you probably do want to, watch it a bit more at night. It is honestly pretty fun. So the way I'm going to go about this is the first half of this video. Like, I know I'm live right now, but the first half of the video it's going to be spoiler free. I will have like the trailer kind of on loop, but that's nothing new, So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about overall thoughts and feelings, and then when it gets to a point where I talk about spoilers, I will let you all know exactly when that starts. But overall, what would I rank the movie out of 10? I would say out of 10, I would give it a solid 9. If you are a very big fan of the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, if you grew up with the games, if you grew up getting excited about the lore, if you were genuinely spooked by it as a kid, or even if you're still spooked by the concept of it today, very solid movie. They do manage to turn it into a full-on movie that even if you aren't connected with the franchise, if that isn't like what you grew up with, and if you're going for a friend, you will enjoy it as well. Like, I will just say that. You will enjoy it as a standalone film, like a horror film. I would say, for a horror movie, it's kind of on the lighter side of horror. There's a lot of funny bits. There is gore, and there's definitely classic FNAF. There's a lot of jump scares, and I definitely jumped while watching this movie a lot of times. And sometimes you're laughing at it a little bit, but it's not because it's a negative type of laughing at the film. It's definitely I'm enjoying this. It's silly and it's kind of goofy. Like, the premise itself is fun, right? It's a game that was so huge for culture, right? Like for the culture of I'd say Gen Z, for the culture of gamers and internet enjoyers and everything like that. So I'd say very, very solid movie. Now, there are criticisms. I'll be honest, it's not a perfect film. Sometimes there's a lot of logical leaps and bounds, and sometimes the pacing can be a little bit silly, goofy at times. And I'll get more into that when I get into the spoilers section. But if you're kind of on the fence about going to it, I would say check it out. At the very least, it's enjoyable to watch with friends. If you watch it from a more meme perspective, where you just kind of want to laugh at the movie, you can kind of do that, but I think the characters carry it enough, and it's sincere enough that you can actually get attached to the people in the film, Now, it definitely isn't you are watching someone play the game. There's a narrative that kind of carries the story along, but that doesn't, I don't think that takes away from it, because the purpose of a movie is not to give you the experience of playing the game. You're there to see, in my opinion, you're there to see these characters come to life, right? You're there to see what it would be like if FNAF as a franchise was a real thing, And as you know, if you're into all the lore of the FNAF franchise, it actually keeps up with it pretty well. Like it's some things are like ever so slightly tweaked, but the core is there. New characters are added to make the story function as like a film, a movie. And in terms of which games the story covers, it pretty much is FNAF 1 with little speckles of FNAF 3 in it. With a little bit of like a few references to the second FNAF game throughout, and even a couple background details relating to FNAF 4 in there as well. There's so many homages to the games and the people around it. It's just incredible to see. Like, again, if you're on the fence about seeing this movie, or if you're seeing a lot of negative reviews online, sure, you know, maybe you'll feel like this is kind of silly, goofy. But I'll say, like, there were genuine moments of tension in the film, at least for me. I genuinely felt that there were times where I was like kind of on the edge of my seat. They really handled the suspense well. Is this a film that I think I would watch again? Absolutely. The franchise is also, it's handled in a way where they genuinely have fun with it. There's scenes in the movie that really just take it to the next level, and I'll talk about that when I get to the spoiler section. But without spoiling the plot, without giving too much away, I'd say it's definitely a worthwhile watch. Definitely check it out, like Halloween weekend. Go with your friends, get your group of gamer friends together and check this movie out. The effects are fantastic. The musical score is great. There's so many references. It's just a really fun time. Now, if you're going for a very deep take on the franchise, you're not going to really find that. It's definitely like a good story on its own, but it's very, very close to the games, you know. Like it's definitely, it has a different aspect of it, and it has like a new level of it, a little bit of extra details to make it function as a movie itself. But they really honor the franchise as a whole. Everything is treated very well. It's a fun time. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you jump. And honestly, there were even points where I got so nostalgic that I felt brought to the point of nearly crying. And again, like, in my personal experience with this franchise, I used to be so obsessed with Five Nights at Freddy's. Frankly, I still am. I love the concept. I think it's just a fun, neat thing. I loved how much it scared me as a kid. I feel like that's something a lot of people in my generation can relate to. That's why this is such a big thing, you know? In terms of recognizing the fan base around it, they definitely do that, and it's fun. Like, when I was watching it with the audience, there were many shared moments of everybody being on the same page of, this is adorable, this is funny, and it's really sweet that they would do things like that, you know? So it's a very positive movie. I would say absolutely see it if you're on the fence, or if you want confirmation that this is gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Like, you obviously cannot be expecting, like, again, the deepest, the darkest film in all of horror history. Like, this movie is definitely rated PG-13 for a reason. If you care about this, there's, like, I think 2 instances of cussing in it, and it's not even crazy. Let's see, what else? Like, there is definitely blood. There's a little bit of gore, okay? But I think it's very good, like, entry-level kind of horror film, you know? I get kind of spooked easily, but I can also objectively see that this film is not the scariest film out there. It's kind of like riding a fun roller coaster, I'd say. Like, you definitely get a little spooked, you get a little jump scared, but it's definitely like a worthwhile movie just on its own, just for what it means, to, I think, the FNAF fan base. Now, if you're someone who never really got into FNAF, you can still really enjoy the movie. I actually went with people who weren't really connected to the franchise, and they enjoyed it. Is it like, I think, their movie of the year? Probably not. But I think for a horror movie, I think they quite enjoyed it. Again, it's fun to get a little bit of a jump scare, and it's kind of fun to see, this story come to life. I think a lot of people are just aware of the cultural impact that this movie had on a whole generation. Now, this is going to be the part where I talk about spoilers. So, if you are joining, spoilers now, okay? Now let's talk about the plot. First of all, the plot itself, it revolves around Mike Schmidt and his sister. And Mike suffers from a little bit of trauma where his brother was kidnapped a long time ago, right? And it's very cool to see that we get like a bit of background on a character that we never really had background on before. The most we got was just his paycheck. We knew he must have been like down on his luck, because why would you take a job like this? But he because of the character Abby, who's Mike's sister, it sets up why he has to work here. He's doing what he can to keep custody of Abby. Abby, by the way, is heavily implied to be on the spectrum of autism, which frankly is, I think, a wonderful message that they have a little bit of representation, especially considering that the FNAF fan base is full of people like on the autistic spectrum. It's full of people, the LGBT community. It's full of people from every walk of life, because this game, horror in general, is universal, but there's definitely something to be said about people who are actually finally being represented in a positive light in the story. And Abby is a very sweet character. She actually befriends the animatronics, and they have a big message in it about how art is something that people can use to communicate, especially like as a child. And especially like if you consider the FNAF fan base, there's a lot of fan art out there. People have made whole games based on the franchise. It's basically a love letter from Scott Cawthon to the people who spent time making incredible art things. Like, not just drawings, but if you think of games like Joy of Creation, that's a fan game. The whole FNAF universe, right? And how so many people get to actually put their talents, put their skills, put their interests into something that everybody can enjoy. And Abby, I feel, is a great character that really exemplifies how art can be a way for people to build bridges. And that's why I think it's so important that we get more representation of characters with autism in big media, especially when the franchise is really geared towards people who enjoy this very specifically. And I just think that's fantastic. The character Mike himself, he's obviously flawed. He is set up to be very down on his luck. He literally starts the movie by beating someone up just because he thinks that a kid is being kidnapped. And that's what I kind of meant with like the logical leaps and bounds. He doesn't really act like he's a security guard. He doesn't really treat the job correctly. He's trying to do his best, especially because his brother was taken. But it's not going perfectly, to say the least, right? There's also the character Vanessa, who is brought into this movie, and she doesn't really act like a policewoman. Like she fails to report things. And it's revealed that she doesn't report things because William Afton is her dad. Also, thank you, Archetypalak? I might be saying this wrong. Let's see. Hello, so okay. Alright, well, thank you. But no thanks. but I wanted to say Vanessa in the movie functions as a person who knows that a lot of things is going on within the thing and within the restaurant, right? Within the Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. Yet she never explains to Mike why she knows all this stuff. She just glances past it, and there's the whole point where like they're confronting each other about it, and she's like, I tried to tell you in my own way. And it's like just classic communication errors, you know. Like it's fine. It's a little bit on the really just try to connect dots, you know, because if you remember, the first FNAF game was Scott Cawthon's last attempt at, you know, being a game developer. And I don't think he was thinking super far in advance, like 6 games down the line, what all of the lore he was setting up would be. He managed to just turn that into something, you know. Something that I will say is I tried to avoid the trailers a lot because, frankly, just looking at this trailer again, yeah, it's it kind of shows a lot in it. I mean, you know, if you've been following like any of the promotional material, you'll know that like Springtrap is in it, and that's what I meant with like it incorporates features of all the games. Springtrap, like William Afton, it was kind of cute because like the people I was watching it with aren't really familiar with everything. So when William Afton was on screen, functioning as the guy who gets Mike the job, right? You know, he like this guy right there. He's so desperate for him to work there, but at the same time he isn't, right? The problem, a big key problem that the story faces is that they don't really justify why Mike is there. William Afton says that like, oh, I'm just sentiment, or the owner's just sentimental about everything. But he also has Vanessa there, who he is basically saying like, if Mike, you know, just make sure that Mike does his job and that he doesn't mess up the place, or yada yada, right? Like, but Vanessa's like a woman in the police. It kind of makes no sense. Like honestly, like if you take the story apart, it's like a little bit goofy. Some of the things they shift around are kind of dumb if you think about it. But you know what I expect from the Five Nights at Freddy's movie is some good jump scares, good effects. I expect you know, to see the characters we've all become familiar with. And it had to be consumable. And like if you look up like a summary of the FNAF lore, like over time, right? You'll find videos on YouTube that are like 8 hours long. You know? Like there's so much lore and so much unpacking that you have to do. So they definitely converted it into more of a made for a movie plot. But the characters, like this kind of just presents William Afton as someone not necessarily obsessed with the afterlife and living forever, but it makes him just into a, you know, a murderer, I guess. Another core concept of the movie itself is that Mike is he is trying to figure out who stole his brother when he was a kid. And the way he tries to go about this is through entering his dreams, right? And trying to find like any missing details. And it's kind of weird because pretty obviously it's set up that William Afton stole his brother Garrett. um, but it's never really explained why. You know, Garrett doesn't show up as like some ghost who inhabits like one of the core animatronics. They could have done something like that. But what's more is because William Afton notices that it's Mike Schmidt, it's his brother, he's suddenly tempted to hire him too. Like, why would he want to bring the brother of the victim closer to him in the first place? I don't know. It wasn't really a well thought out plan on William Afton's part. But if you think of the FNAF franchise as like a whole, it's a lot of just trying to connect dots that showed up over time. So, you know, the actual plot itself is a little silly. But where the movie shines is just the effects and, you know, the way that the characters carry themselves. Like, when William Afton's on screen, you're like, oh my gosh, he's so fun. You know, like, you could tell that, I'm just gonna say Shaggy, because he played Shaggy in one of the live action Scooby-Doos. But when he's on screen, he's just having a good time. You could tell he loves the role. He's you know, having a good time just being a bad guy, you know? And then Mike is, you know, just like a solid, like, you know, any man, you know? He has a very real desire to connect with his sister Abby. And you can see, like, that relationship kind of be a struggle for him, because Abby, she isn't mute, but she really struggles to, like, talk to him. She kind of just stays and does her thing. She draws, like, all day long, you know? She's not really interested in, like, eating dinner with him. She's not interested in, like, asking him about his day. She's very focused on just, like, her imaginary friends, who turn out to actually be the ghosts this whole time. I'm like, okay, you know? It is very interesting, because it's not really explained why Abby suddenly, like, is connected to the ghosts, really. Like, is it because William Afton, you know, stole Garrett, who's, like, their mutual sibling that's just long lost? Is it because, you know, because Abby is, like, friends with the ghosts before Mike is working there, you know? And it's implied that she's been drawing these people for a little bit into the movie. You know, it's just a little odd, you know? I don't really know what their implication is with, you know, Abby being able to communicate with ghosts. But at the same time, the FNAF franchise has always been about, like, the paranormal, you know? So it's a little goofy. They kind of even, like, are a little cheesy about it, and they're like, you know, well, duh, they're ghosts. How else do you think they get the robots to move, Mike? You know? So it's a very enjoyable plot. It's definitely not something that you have to think deeply about like you had to for all of the games for all of those years. It's really fine to not be an active follower of the story and get the main idea, right? In terms of like the scares and the gore, there are parts where it's like, ooh, you know, that was a lot. And in fact, it's so much that it's kind of funny, you know? But definitely, like, at the start, it's pretty suspenseful. Like, when you first get introduced to, like, the position. And beyond that, there's just a few moments of tension that are just, you know, really well done that I find. But they definitely changed a few things with, like, the whole plot. Like, they definitely tried to do, like, the stuff you into suits thing, but it's kind of more they just want to, like, rip you up, kind of, but not themselves. Like, what ends up happening is Mike talks to like ghosts in his dream, and then the ghosts like will attack him, and then he'll wake up, with wounds, because it's basically implied that the animatronics were actually attacking him while he slept to have his dreams. So it definitely, it kind of definitely diverts from the actual gameplay experience in that sense, because they don't just like take you in every night. Like they, have reasons for wanting to take you in. Like, it's very odd. Also, the whole like William Afton thing, like it's obvious if you are a fan of the thing, but it's also not exactly obvious when he's going to show up, which he doesn't show up until like the very end of the movie. And also I kind of need to refresh myself if Vanessa's William Afton's daughter in the games, because I'm pretty sure Vanessa just ended up being an employee that was exposed to like William Afton's like virus, like computer virus, and that's how he took control of her mind, right? Which is a very silly plot. Like, again, the game's plots are silly, so like I did not go into this thinking that the movie plot was suddenly going to be very deep and well thought out. Like I knew it was gonna be just like a fun time, like fun Halloween flick, Now, the reason I love this movie, it's obviously not because of the amazing work done by the writing team. But I'm not going to sit here and say that they didn't do any work at all. Like, there's definitely moments of comedy. There's moments of, they have really good moments of, like, action scenes. They have good, like, dialogue between characters. But it's not super, super deep, right? Like it is very surface level. If you know the games, you kind of know the plot of the movie. There's also like this really weird custody battle thing going on between like Mike and Abby's aunt for Abby. And Mike literally just has to say like all she wants is the checks that Abby would bring in every month, right? And it's just like, when you have to explicitly say that, it kind of takes away from the point of it being a movie where you watch it to be shown, not told. Because they really didn't do a great job of building up the aunt as like some serious like threat, She kind of functions more to move the plot forward, and it's still enjoyable to see kind of her demise because you don't expect it. But every time there's like a moment of demise, there's always like a moment of comedy like right after. It's very balanced. Like, this movie is definitely PG-13, okay? Like, I'm gonna say that. Like, it is very PG-13, okay? It's fun though. It's really fun. Like, that's the thing. And I cannot stress that enough. So, as like a critic of a movie, I could see them rating this as like pretty low. The plot isn't perfect. The pacing isn't perfect. But if you're a fan of the franchise, you'll enjoy the film, right? Like, at the end, they literally involved the living tombstone. They played the FNAF song for the credits. Matt Pat from Game Theory, he made a cameo in the movie that really actually made everyone in the audience laugh along with me. It was very cute, and you know that they wanted to have Markiplier in there, so they might do a sequel. Do I hope that this movie gets a sequel? And if so, would I see it? Actually, yes. I do hope that this gets a sequel. And I hope we can, see Markiplier in it. I will see it again. Like, if they, play it or make it, I don't think it was really a letdown. But at the same time, I had, I think, pretty realistic expectations, and I think that's why I had such a good time. I wasn't expecting the perfect movie. I was expecting a movie that was there to honor the FNAF franchise, right? I will never stop loving this franchise. I will never stop loving the concept of these characters and you know, just the community that it brought together. You know, watching people play Security Breach and find all of these like glitches that are just silly and goofy like that. Like, yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I like to watch Astral Spiff. You should definitely check him out if you like watching FNAF content. He breaks the game. He found so many little silly things, and he plays a lot of fan games in the FNAF franchise, but things that are kind of adjacent to FNAF. So definitely, I suggest watching him. But it was a really fun experience. Again, solid like 9 out of 10 if you're nostalgic for the franchise. I would even say 10 out of 10. It did exactly what I wanted it to do. But I definitely see the problems. I definitely see the problems in the film as a film. But I appreciate what it is. And if you're like me, then yeah. But if you're going in and you want like a super deep story about like all the characters, you're not gonna get that really. But hey, if you watch it, make a video too. Like, let's tell people what we think about this thing, right? I think they did a really good job. The effects, by the way, are awesome. The animatronics look so cool. I really thought I wouldn't like the red eyes, that aspect. But that didn't really bother me while I watched it. I'd also say, because Abby becomes friends with the animatronics, they have a very fun scene together where they're all making like a pillow fort. It's so cute to watch. It was so fun. I love that. That just made me happy because, you know, I remember being a kid, like a young kid, watching like the FNAF stuff and being super scared of these robots, but also wanting to know like what it would be like if they were on my side, you know, like if you just had like these super bodyguards, kind of like that, you know. So it was definitely really fun. I might do like an art stream sometime soon where I maybe address with like the characters in FNAF. But yeah, definitely highly recommend seeing it. If you're a fan of the franchise, don't listen to the people online that are rating it like a 6 out of 10. It's a 6 out of 10 plot, but it's a 9 out of 10 experience, you know? You can't always watch movies for the plot. It kind of sounds like a meme, right? It's about the culture that formed around this game. It's about the community that formed around this game. It's about the, you know, the fond memories of being a kid and being scared and actually managing to get a jump scared again. You know, like when you were a kid. And it's fun. It's a very creative and exciting look at the franchise. I didn't even spoil like all of like the little plot details in this. Definitely recommend seeing it or watching it again. So yeah, and I would highly recommend watching it in theaters with friends. Like, I think that's the best way to watch it, is with people. So yeah, maybe this gave you a little bit of insight into me and the things that I just find neat. I hope to do more movie reviews in the future when movies come out. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you Screen Culture for uploading the final trailer. I'll definitely link that in the description if you want to look at that trailer again, and I'll link the music too. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next stream. Tschüssi!